Malaysia-Indonesia reached several key agreements in 13th annual consultation. UK urges Israel to end Gaza oppression. Good afternoon and salam Malaysia, Madani. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching World Today with me, Julai. Malaysia and Indonesia have reached several key agreements during the 13th annual consultations held in Jakarta. These include border issues, the expansion of economic cooperation, and efforts to accelerate the implementation of new energy projects. Prime Minister Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim expressed deep appreciation to President Prabowo Subianto for his commitment to strengthening bilateral cooperation shown through his round of talks.
Keberhasilan itu MOU mengenai Pulau Sebatik dan Sungai Sinapat ini benar-benar yang diperhalusi, dicerakin atas pertimbangan kedua-dua pihak dari segi teknikal, perundangan dan kerjasama. Kita juga tingkatkan kerjasama bidang kesihatan, maklumat dan komunikasi serta tadbir urus internet.
In addition, Malaysia and Indonesia have agreed to enhance cooperation under the framework of the Trilateral Cooperation Agreement aimed at maintaining security in the Sulu and Sulawesi Seas. Dato' Sri Anwar highlighted that both nations are committed to respecting established maritime boundaries guided by international law and the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea UNCLOS 1982.
Jadi semangat kita ialah untuk sama-sama menjaga kepentingan negara masing-masing dan menghormati kaedah persempadanan yang ditentukan oleh hukum antarabangsa. Jadi kita maju dengan semangat itu supaya tidak ada ketegangan. Tapi sementara itu kita beri laluan, jangan terganggu kepentingan nelayan, kepentingan dagang dan kedudukan penduduk sekitar itu.
Also discussed were regional matters involving Cambodia and Thailand, the situation in Gaza, US tariffs, and the ongoing conflict in Myanmar. Peace efforts between Cambodia and Thailand are beginning to show promising results despite several incidents that have challenged the ongoing process. Prime Minister Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim stated that ASEAN must remain united, principled and anchored in dialogue in facing regional and global challenges. He made the remarks during a phone call with Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. shortly after returning from Jakarta last night. The Prime Minister also stressed that Malaysia values the constructive contributions of major powers such as China and the United States, as well as fellow ASEAN partners in advancing the peace talks. The conversation also touched on current development in the region, including President Marcos' recent visit to the United States and ASEAN's crucial role in strengthening regional cooperation. The United Kingdom has urged Israel to end the appalling situation in Gaza and committed to a long-term, sustainable peace, or the British government will recognize a Palestinian state in September. At a high-level international conference on the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution, UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy said the UK is determined to protect the viability of the two-state solution.
His Majesty's government therefore intends to recognise the state of Palestine when the UN General Assembly gathers in September here in New York. We will do this unless the Israeli government acts to end the appalling situation in Gaza, ends its military campaign and commits to a long, sustainable peace based on a two-state solution.
Earlier, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that the UK will recognise a Palestinian state by the time of the UN General Assembly in September, unless the Israeli government agrees to a ceasefire and revives the prospect of a two-state solution. Now, this includes Israel allowing the UN to resume the delivery of humanitarian aid and clearly committing to ending the annexation of the Palestinian land in the West Bank. According to British media, more than 200 members of parliament recently called on the prime ministers to recognise a Palestinian state. UN-backed experts warn a worst-case scenario famine is now unfolding in Gaza. Unless aid groups get immediate, unimpeded access, they say the crisis cannot be reversed. The alert comes from the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, or IPC, the global authority on hunger levels. The group says recent airdrops of food into Gaza, while helpful, are nowhere near enough to stop the growing humanitarian catastrophe.
The latest Integrated Food Security Phase Classification Alert confirms what we have feared. Gaza is on the brink of famine. The facts are in, and they are undeniable. Palestinians in Gaza are enduring a humanitarian catastrophe of epic proportions. This is not a warning. It is a reality unfolding before our eyes. The trickle of aid must become an ocean. Food, water, medicine, and fuel must flow in waves and without obstruction.
Since Israel's military campaign began nearly 2 years ago, Gaza's health officials report over 60,000 deaths, and now hunger is claiming more lives. Over 20,000 children have been treated for acute malnutrition between April and mid-July. More than 3,000 are severely malnourished, and at least 16 children under 5 have died from hunger since 17th July. UN agencies are urging the world to act now, saying time is running out. Israel imposed a full blockade in early March. While some aid is trickling in, experts say road deliveries are still the fastest and safest option. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer held a news conference on Tuesday in Stockholm following the conclusion of high-stakes trade talks between the United States and China, in which no major breakthroughs were announced. Bessent said he had told Chinese officials that China would face high tariff if Beijing continued with its Russian oil purchases.
And again, I think it was the level of momentum and the entire reordering that President Trump has done of the global trading system. So now here you have the two largest economies in negotiation. And as I've said before, and we reiterated to them, we don't want to decouple. We just need to de-risk with certain strategic industries.
The U.S. and Chinese delegations agreed to seek an extension of the 90-day tariff truce after the 2 days of talks in the Swedish capital. The talks, described as constructive, mark another step in recalibrating economic ties between the world's two largest economies. Bessent and Greer said discussions had been far-reaching and addressed topics including China's purchases of sanctioned Iranian oil and the acceleration of rare earth magnet supplies. Bessent also said he and Sweden's Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson had discussed the trade deal struck by the European Union and the United States, and that the Swedish leader had been supportive of it. The Trump administration said on Tuesday it will rescind the long-standing finding that greenhouse gas emissions endanger human health, removing the legal foundation for all U.S. greenhouse gas regulations. If finalized, the repeal would end current limits on greenhouse gas pollution from vehicle tailpipes, power plant smokestacks, and other sources, and hamper future U.S. efforts to combat global warming. Environmental Protection Agency Administration Lee Zeldin announced the agency's plan to rescind the endangerment finding and called it the largest deregulatory action in U.S. history. He argued the move reflected the will of U.S. voters for the regulator to protect the economy. Trump said the proposal, which needs to undergo a public comment period, would cut $54 billion in cost annually through the repeal of all greenhouse gas standards, including the vehicle tailpipe standard. Environmental groups blasted the move, saying it spells the end of the road for U.S. action against climate change. Zeldin said that a 2024 Supreme Court decision that reduced the power of federal agencies to interpret the laws they administer, known as the Chevron deference, means that the EPA does not have the ability to regulate greenhouse gases. He added that if Congress decides it wants to amend the Federal Clean Act to explicitly state the U.S. should regulate carbon dioxide, methane, and other planet-warming gases, the EPA would follow its lead. Europe's car industry is breathing a bit easier after a new trade deal with the US. But German car makers are still facing major challenges. Shares of Porsche, Volkswagen, BMW and Mercedes-Benz all dropped more than 3% on Monday as the reality of the new US tariff sank in. The new 15% tariff is lower than the 27.5% rate imposed by President Trump in April. Europe's main auto group, ACA, welcomed the deal in principle, saying it removes some of the uncertainty that's clouded transatlantic trade in recent months. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz warned the tariffs will cause substantial damage to his country's economy, the largest in Europe. The US is a vital market for European car makers, accounting for nearly a quarter of their exports last year, around 750,000 vehicles. German automakers alone sent 13% of their exports to the US. Now with pressure mounting, Europe's car industry is calling on the EU to ease its all-electric transition timeline and offer stimulus to soften the blow. Without help, industry analysts warn production cut could hit soon and up to 70,000 jobs in Germany may be at risk. A Russian aerial bomb attack on a penal colony in southeastern Ukraine killed at least 17 and injured at least 42 people late on Monday. Ukraine's Justice Ministry said in a statement the prison's dining hall had been destroyed and other parts damaged in a strike that involved 4 high-explosive aerial bombs. Parts of the prison in Blinkey, Zaporizhzhia region was destroyed and several inmates sustained injuries. The prison's deputy head Dimitrov Azarov said at least 16 inmates had been killed.
Можливого їх переведення в безпечніше місце, але наразі це питання вирішується. Тому що установа розташована неподалік ведення зони бойових дій. Ворогу це було так сказати, удобно завдати такий удар, щоб дискредитувати роботу установ, оскільки ми теж люди, які носять військову форму. Можливо, це просто акт терору.
Ukraine's Justice Ministry put the overall death toll at 17 people and said 42 were wounded. There was no immediate comment from Russia, which denies targeting civilians in the strikes, but thousands of civilians had been killed in the conflict, the vast majority of them Ukrainians. A powerful magnitude 8.7 earthquake struck off Russia's far eastern Kamchatka Peninsula earlier today, generating a tsunami of up to 4 meters, prompting evacuations and damaging buildings. In a video posted on the Telegram messaging app, Kamchatka Governor Vladimir Solodov said the earthquake was serious and the strongest in decades of tremors. He added that according to preliminary information, there were no injuries, but a kindergarten was damaged. The U.S. Geological Survey said the earthquake was shallow at a depth of 19.3 kilometers and was centered about 125 kilometers east-southeast of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, a city of 165,000. The Japan Weather Agency upgraded its warning, saying it expected tsunami waves of up to 3 meters to reach large coastal areas. Broadcaster NHK said evacuation orders had been issued by the government for some areas. Meanwhile, the U.S. tsunami warning system also issued a warning of hazardous tsunami waves within the next 3 hours along some coasts of Russia, Japan, and Hawaii. A tsunami watch was also in effect for the U.S. island territory of Guam and other island of Micronesia. Kamchatka and Russia's far east sit on the Pacific Ring of Fire, a geologically active region that is prone to major earthquakes and volcanic eruptions.
Bang, tolong pergi PBT, bayarkan cukai tak serah boleh?
Apa? Tadi mati saya pagi tadi saya mari sini lepas tu saya kena kompor.
Minta tolong bayarkan sewa premis saya. Saya tak ada masa nak pergi. Kau meng lah.
Macam mana nak bayar ni?
Dalam aplikasi PBT ini, anda boleh membuat pembayaran, cukai taksiran, kompaun, sewaan permis dan bil sebagai dalam sekelip mata melalui telefon bimbit sahaja. PBT Pay berkukuh pendigitalan PBT.
Coming up next, Telegram founder faces questioning over alleged complicity in crime. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) on Tuesday lifted its global growth forecast for 2025 to 3%, 0.2 percentage points higher than its projection in April. Emerging markets and developing economies are now expected to grow by 4.1% in 2025, while the growth projection for advanced economies have been revised upward to 1.5%. In particular, growth forecast for the United States, the EU, Japan, Britain, Canada, China, India, Brazil, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, and Nigeria were revised upward. The broader-based upward revision for the year reflects stronger than expected front-loading in anticipation of higher tariffs, lower average effective U.S. tariff rates than announced in April, an improvement in financial conditions, including due to a weaker U.S. dollar and fiscal expansion in some major jurisdictions. The global economy has continued to hold steady, but economic activity points to tariff distortions rather than underlying robustness. Economic policy uncertainty is predicted to remain elevated this year and next. Overall, risk to the latest outlook remain tilted to the downside, considering the precarious equilibrium of trade policy stances, possible escalation of geopolitical tensions, potentially more salient fiscal vulnerabilities, and other factors. Without comprehensive agreements, ongoing trade uncertainties could increasingly weigh on investment and economic activity. Telegram founder Pavel Durov faced questioning by investigating magistrates in Paris about the platform's alleged complicity in criminal activity. He was detained last year in Paris and under investigation by French authorities over illegal content on his popular messaging service. The Russian-born entrepreneur faced his third round of questioning since being charged with multiple infractions linked to enabling organized crime. Durov has been accused of complicity in running an online platform that allowed illicit transactions, child sex abuse images, and other illegal content. He has denied all the claims. In his initial questioning in December 2024, Durov denied creating Telegram for illicit use, but acknowledged a growing criminal presence on the platform and pledging to strengthen moderation. Durov's lawyers have filed motions to dismiss the charges with the Paris Appeals Court. Durov, who was initially banned from leaving France, had his judicial control relaxed from early July, allowing him to reside in the United Arab Emirates for a maximum of 2 weeks at a time. 2 children were killed and 2 others are hospitalized in critical condition after a barge struck a sailboat off the coast of Miami on Monday. According to Coast Guard Sector Miami Commanding Officer Frank Florio III, the collision occurred near Hibiscus Island at around 11:27 a.m. local time, when the barge hit a summer camp sailboat belonging to the Miami Yacht Club.
Tragically, the incident resulted in the same-day deaths of a 7-year-old and a 13-year-old. 2 remain hospitalized in critical condition, and 2 other individuals were rescued. Search and rescue operations concluded yesterday, and next of kin notifications have been completed. One of the main questions that we received yesterday were the girls wearing life jackets? We were not comfortable answering that yesterday. Through some of our investigative work and some of the interviews we conducted, we do believe all of the girls were wearing life jackets. Again, our investigation needs to confirm that, but as of now, we believe the girls were wearing life jackets.
6 people were on the sailboat, where at least one of the killed victims was Argentine, 5 of them children between the ages of 7 and 12. Almost 2,700 firefighters battled to contain forest blaze across Portugal that have led to almost the whole country being put on high alert. 17 major fires blazed, with the most serious in the centre and north of the country. Some 750 firefighters sought to control a blaze in a eucalyptus forest in the Arauca municipality of central Portugal. Hundreds more battled a blaze near the central town of Penamacor and one on a mountain at Ponte de Barca near the northern border with Spain. 4 Spanish water-carrying planes joined the effort on Monday. Civil protection officials said overall 26 firefighting aircraft were in the air. Some 20 people, including 14 firefighters, were treated for minor injuries. The Ponte de Barca fire, which started on Saturday, forced the evacuation of some people to a local church and burned nearly 2,000 hectares of land. Authorities said the fires could worsen in coming days because of the heat. Like many countries, Portugal faces wildfires every summer. Experts say climate change is increasing the frequency and intensity of droughts and fires around the world. Still to come in sport, Luke Shaw believes Man United can bounce back to winning ways next season. Manchester United took to the training pitch on Tuesday ahead of their pre-season match against Bournemouth in the United States' second city. The Red Devil made a winning start to their tour of the US, defeating West Ham 2-1 on Sunday, with new signing Matheus Cunha seeing 65 minutes of action. The 26-year-old Brazilian forward joined from Wolves at the start of the transfer window, with United also concluding a deal for Cameroon international Brian Mbeumo from Brentford before travelling stateside. Head coach Ruben Amorim, who took charge in November, guided the 20-time English champions to just 7 wins in 27 league matches as United endured their worst campaign of the Premier League era, finishing 15th in the standings. They also missed the chance to qualify for the Champions League through the back door as they lost the Europa League final 1-0 to Tottenham Hotspur. After Wednesday's match against Bournemouth, United will travel to Atlanta to take on Everton on Sunday before returning home to face Fiorentina at Old Trafford on August 9th. They begin the new Premier League season against Arsenal on 17th August. Luke Shaw is certain Manchester United can bounce back next season despite enduring their worst campaign of the Premier League era. After sacking Erik ten Hag last October, the Red Devils went on to win just 7 league matches from 27 under new head coach Ruben Amorim as they slumped to a 15th place finish in the standings. They also missed the chance to qualify for the Champions League through the back door as they lost the Europa League final 1-0 to Tottenham Hotspur. Speaking to the media in Chicago, where United will face Bournemouth on Wednesday as part of their pre-season tour of the United States, Shaw, however, struck a tone of optimism.
The aim has to be to win the Premier League. I know people will, be questioning me for saying that after last season, but it has to be that, and it's not just me that thinks that. I'm sure the whole team, if you ask them, they all have the same aims. Even the manager, I'm sure he probably wouldn't say it in the press, but we all have to have the same beliefs and ambitions, and like I said, that real family sort of feeling together, and all strive for the same thing.
Portugal for João Felix has joined Saudi Pro League side Al Nassr from Club World Cup winners Chelsea on a 2-year contract. Neither club disclosed any financial details of the deal, but Sky Sports said the transfer could cost up to £43.7 million, equivalent about $58.17 million US. It consists of an initial £26.2 million fee plus £17.5 million potential add-ons. Felix moved from Benfica to Atletico Madrid in 2019 when he was only 19 and then joined Chelsea on loan for the 2022 to 2023 campaign before being loaned to Barcelona the following season. He made a permanent move to Chelsea in August 2024. After just 6 months, Chelsea loaned the forward to AC Milan before his latest transfer to Saudi Arabia. Felix will play alongside Portugal captain Cristiano Ronaldo at Al Nassr, who are coached by compatriot Jorge Jesus. They face Al Ittihad in the Saudi Super Cup semi-finals on 19th August. Felix is the latest player from Europe to move to Saudi Arabia as part of the kingdom's bid to become a major force in football. His transfer from Club World Cup winner Chelsea is the latest in a long line of moves for a player who holds the record for the 4th most expensive signing in history, but has failed to live up to expectations placed on him so early in his career.
Tutup tingkap dan pintu untuk kekal dingin dan lebih jimat.
And that wraps up World Today this time round. In our top story, Malaysia, Indonesia reached several key agreements in 13th annual consultation. For business news updates, do join us tonight at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 or saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Shuhaida Arifin, Malaysia Madani, Rakyat Disantuni.